Imagine a journey really beyond comprehension, transcending time, space, an epic story.
Mm-hmm.
It's captivated millions for centuries. I mean, we're talking about one of the most revered events in Islamic tradition, the Prophet's night journey, Isra and Meraj.
Absolutely. It holds such profound spiritual weight, deeply embedded in faith.
And let's say, the popular understanding, the one most people know.
Yeah, the conventional view.
Right. It's usually seen as this single, miraculous physical journey. Makkah to Jerusalem, then up through the heavens, body and soul.
That's the widely accepted narrative you'll find in most traditional texts.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because today we're doing a deep dive. We want to get into the nuances of this really fascinating incident.
And specifically looking at how a respected contemporary scholar, Javed Ahmed Ghamidi, offers a different lens.
Exactly. And it's important right up front to say he's not denying the miraculous nature of it all.
Not at all. It's more about reinterpreting the kind of experience it was, the nature of it.
So the big question we're wrestling with here is, what does it really mean to believe in miracles? And how do we square deep faith with a, let's say, critical look at these historical accounts?
That's precisely where Ghamidi's approach comes in handy, I think. But first, we need to clear up a common misconception.
Which is?
Well, some critics say he just negates miracles or, tries to twist interpretations to make them fit modern science or seem less irrational.
Right. I've heard that.
But that's really not his position. His foundation is belief in an all-powerful God.
Ala kulli shayin qadir.
Exactly. All-powerful over everything. And bi kulli shayin alim, all-knowing. For a God like that, nothing's impossible. Lifting someone to the heavens, breaking the sun, it's all within his power. Ghamidi says, look, if you were told a prophet was taken physically to the heavens for years, he'd have no intellectual problem with that possibility.
Okay, so the power isn't the issue.
Not at all. And he fully accepts many established miracles as, literal facts.
Like Musa's staff turning into a snake.
Yes. Or his hand glowing white. Acts of birth without a father, speaking from the cradle, giving life to the dead. These are accepted.
So where's the debate then, if not on whether miracles can happen?
It's about how specific events are presented in the texts and how they're attributed. The crucial step for him is rigorous investigation and research. How is a divine incident actually stated in the Quran or reliable hadith? Is it clearly called a physical miracle, an event, a vision, a sign? He wants to ensure there's no human interpolation muddying the waters.
Making sure we're reading what the text says, not what we think it should say.
Precisely. And he argues the biggest miracle of all is revelation itself. God speaking to prophets, sending the Quran. That's fundamental.
And he does talk about the purpose of miracles, right?
Yes, twofold. One, Mami Hujjat, completing the proof for those who deny. And two, enhancing Iman faith for believers. He accepts miracles like the prophet feeding 70 people with a little milk or water springing forth for soldiers. Those are clearly presented as such.
Got it. So this leads to his method, his principles for interpretation.
Key principles, yes. First, approach the texts, Quran and Hadith, with an empty mind, like a researcher. Humble, open, not imposing your own ideas beforehand.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True. And second, crucially, the Quran is the primary reference, the ultimate benchmark.
The fourth one.
Exactly. Its words, its context, its background, that's paramount. The Quran guides how we understand other narrations, like Hadith, not the other way around.
Okay. So if we take this meticulous Quran-first approach and apply it to Isra and Meraj, what happens? How does Ghamidi unravel what many see as this one big story?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. He doesn't see one incident, he sees four.
Four, okay. Often lumped together, you're saying?
Yes, often conflated. The first one he identifies is the Isra, the night journey itself, described in Surah Bani Israel, the very first verse.
Read that for us.
Free from all defects is that being who took his servant by night from the Masjid al-Haram to that distant masjid whose surroundings we have blessed, so that we may show him some of our signs. Verily, he alone is the all-hearing, all-seeing.
Okay, that's a foundational verse everyone points to, the journey to Jerusalem.
Right, but Ghamidi immediately points to a verse later in the same surah, ayah 60, and this, for him, is pivotal.
And ayah 60 says?
It says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا رُؤْيَا الَّتِي أَرَيْنَاكَ إِلَّا فِتْنَةً لِلنَّاسِ, which translates to, and the ruya, which we have shown to you, has been made fitna for the people.
Okay, the key word there is ruya. Why is that so significant?
It's absolutely central to his argument for this first incident. And he notes that major classical interpreters like Ibn Jarir and even modern ones like Maududi agree that Ayah 60 is referring back to the event mentioned in Ayah 1.
So the Quran itself calls that journey, that showing of signs, a ruya.
Exactly. Now the debate becomes, what does ruya mean here?
Because words can have multiple meanings.
Correct. Some scholars argue ruya can mean seeing with the eyes in a conscious state. They might cite, lexical definitions or lines of poetry where seeing is used that way.
Okay.
But Ghamidi pushes back strongly. He says, look, in common Arabic usage, ruya is the most common word for a dream.
Can you give an example of how we use similar language for dreams?
Sure. Think about it in English. You'd say, last night I dreamt I flew to Paris. Or, I saw myself climbing a huge mountain in my dream. You use verbs of physical action flew, climbing, but everyone gets that it happened within the dream.
Right, it's metaphorical language based on the dream experience.
Precisely, and the Quran does this all the time.
Yeah.
Yusuf's dreams, in Surah Yusuf, Ibrahim's dream of sacrificing his son, he saw himself doing it. The Prophet's own dream about entering Makkah for Hajj, where people are described as shaving their heads, a physical action in the dream. Ghamidi points out that in Hadith literature, ruya appears maybe 700 times, and it consistently means dream. He argues that when a word is used figuratively, outside its primary meaning, there are always context clues. Qarain, he calls them. Rhetorical style, the occasion, something signals it's not literal. And those clues, he says, are missing in Ayah 60 to suggest it means physical seeing.
So the default, most natural reading of ruya here is dream or vision experienced in a dreamlike state.
That's his argument. It requires strong evidence to overturn the common meaning, and he doesn't see it here.
What about the argument involving Ibn Abbas, a major companion who reportedly called the Isra a ru'ya'ain, seeing with the eyes? Doesn't that suggest physical sight?
Ghamidi addresses that too. He explains that ru'ya'ain doesn't necessarily mean physical seeing involving bodily transport. It can mean a conscious vision, something seen vividly with the eyes of imagination, if you will.
Like a very clear, impactful vision.
Exactly. He gives examples like the prophet reportedly seeing paradise brought before him during prayer, or when he needed to describe Baitul Maqdis to the skeptical Quraysh, Allah showed him a clear vision then and there. It was seeing with the eyes in that visionary sense, incredibly real, but not necessarily physical travel. And the verb azra, took by night, in Ayah 1, fits a visionary journey perfectly.
Okay, interesting distinction. What about the word subhan, glorified be he, at the very start of the surah? Many say that signals an extraordinary, physically impossible act, proving it was a physical journey.
Yeah, that's a common point. But Ghamidi argues Subhan isn't just about demonstrating power over the impossible. Its primary function is tanzih, declaring Allah free from any defects, shortcomings, or misconceptions people might have about him.
So it's about clarifying Allah's perfection.
Yes. And he says the context comes at the end of Ayah 1. Indeed, he is all-hearing, all-seeing. What was Allah hearing and seeing? Ghamidi suggests it was the corruption and wrongdoing happening in the sacred precincts, both Makkah and Jerusalem, Masjid Aqsa.
So the subhan relates to that.
His interpretation is that the tanzih, the glorification, is tied to Allah's justice and awareness. The Isra vision was a powerful message related to this corruption. It signaled that Allah wouldn't tolerate his houses being made into, dens of thieves, as the saying goes. It foreshadowed the transfer of custodianship of these holy sites from the Bani Israel, who had become, in this view, untrustworthy to the Prophet Muhammad and his followers. That divine decision and plan is the incredible act being glorified by Subhan.
That reframes subhan quite significantly. Not just raw power, but divine justice and oversight.
It connects it directly to the purpose of the vision.
Okay, let's tackle the fitna part again. Ayah 60 says the ruya was made a fitna, a test, a trial for the people. The counter-argument is strong. How could a dream be a real test for hardened disbelievers like Abu Jahl? Wouldn't mythical miracle be the real test?
Ghamidi clarifies the meaning of fitna here. He argues it's describing a consequence of the people's own actions and attitudes, not that Allah intended the vision primarily as a test for them. Allah presented many signs and warnings the spread of Islam, Quranic verses like the one about the Zakum tree in hell, but the disbelievers consistently chose to mock and ridicule these signs. So when the Prophet related this profound ruya, which was a reality shown by Allah, they again chose to disbelieve, mock, and turn it into a point of ridicule. Their reaction, their choice to disbelieve and scoff, is what made it a fitna for them. It became a cause for their own trial because of their misdeeds and acts of disobedience, as Ghamidi puts it.
So the fitna wasn't inherent in the vision itself, but in how people responded to it.
Exactly. Their mockery turned it into a fitna for themselves.
What about the story where the prophet hesitated when the Quraysh grilled him for details about Jerusalem, about Baitul Maqdis? If it was just a dream, why hesitate? And why did Allah then apparently show him the building again?
Well, first, it wasn't just a dream in our normal sense. It was a prophetic ruya, a true and clear reality conveyed by Allah. The prophet related it as such, as something real he experienced. Ghamidi suggests the hesitation wasn't about doubting the vision's reality. It was because he knew the Quraysh were insincere. They weren't asking out of genuine curiosity. They were looking for any excuse to mock him.
Trying to trip him up on minor details.
Precisely. Imagine trying to recall the exact number of pillars in a building you saw vividly in a vision, especially under pressure from hostile questioners. You might worry about getting a small detail slightly wrong, giving them ammunition. So Allah, in His wisdom, alleviated that pressure. He brought the entire vision of Baitul Maqdis right before the prophet's conscious eyes at that moment.
Wow.
This allowed him to answer their specific nitpicking questions accurately, silencing their mockery and, Ghamidi argues, further demonstrating the power and clarity of prophetic ruya that they can be recalled or even re-experienced consciously.
So prophetic ruya are a category of their own, really, not just fuzzy dreams.
Absolutely. Scholars like Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi, Ghamidi's own teacher, describe them as a means of wahi revelation. They're absolutely clear without confusion, bringing greater satisfaction to the prophet than even physical sight. They're free from deception, have a greater expanse than physical vision, encompassing meanings, realities, signs, the radiance of the divine. Things our physical eyes might miss or can't perceive, they literally take him into another world.
And the purpose of this specific Isra ruya, then, in this interpretation?
Monumental. It signaled the transfer of spiritual custodianship of both holy sites, Makkah and Jerusalem, to the prophet and his ummah.
Yeah.
And implicitly, it foretold future worldly influence, too. Ghamidi mentions the idea of the keys to Rome and Persia, a promise of global reach, a powerful sign of divine support during very difficult early days of the mission.
That gives the Isra incredible weight, even interpreting it as a profound ruya. Okay, so that's incident one. You said Ghamidi identifies 4. What are the next 2?
The second and third incidents, he argues, are described in a different chapter, Surah Namj. This surah talks about the prophet seeing a powerful being described intensely, first on the highest part of the horizon. Then this being drew near, coming within 2 bows' length or nearer, and then it mentions the prophet seeing him once again descending near the Sidratun Muntaha, the lote tree of the utmost bound.
Right. Now, some traditional views might link this to the Meraj, the ascension part of the night journey, perhaps even suggesting the being seen was Allah.
Yes, the mention of seeing a great sign of his Lord leads some to connect it. But Ghamidi argues these events in Surah Najm are completely independent from the Isra Ruya. They have a totally different objective.
Which is?
The main goal of Surah Najm, in this view, is to establish the certainty and reality of revelation. It's focusing on the prophet's direct, unmistakable experience of the angel Jibril, the conveyor of revelation, in his true, awesome form.
And how does he establish it was Jibril, not Allah?
This is crucial. He points to a very clear hadith in Sahih Muslim, one of the most authentic collections. Sayyida Aisha, the prophet's wife, asked the prophet directly, "Did you see your Lord?"
And his answer?
His answer, according to this narration, was clear. Innama huwa Jibril, that was Jibril. He explicitly denied seeing Allah directly. He further clarified in that discussion that he had seen Jibril in his actual magnificent form as Allah created him only on 2 occasions.
The 2 occasions mentioned in Surah Najm.
Precisely, and the description fits. He saw Jibril descending from the heavens while the prophet himself was on earth. Jibril's sheer presence, his extraordinary personality, filled the entire horizon, from the sky to the earth.
Wow. So those great signs mentioned in Surah Najm refer to?
They refer to witnessing Jibril's true form, and through that, understanding the majesty of the universe of my Lord, the reality of the Mala'ala, or the higher assembly of angels, the Sidratun Muntaha, and the immense influences, radiance, and the blessings of Allah associated with these cosmic realities shown via Jibril. These are distinct signs related to the mechanism of revelation, different from the signs related to the transfer of custodianship shown in the Isra Ruya.
Okay, that draws a very clear line between the Isra Ruya in Bani Israel and these encounters with Jibril and Surah Najm. So what's the 4th incident?
The fourth incident is what many traditionally call the Meraj, the ascension to the heavens. But Ghamidi argues this is detailed primarily in hadith accounts, and it's another distinct ruya, separate from both the Isra and the Najm events.
Found in collections like Bukhari.
Yes, narrated by several companions, Anas bin Malik, Abu Dar Ghifari, Malik bin Sasa, Abu Huraira, and the narrative itself starts differently.
How so?
It typically begins with the Prophet sleeping in the Masjid Haram in the Hatim area. Then his chest is described as being opened, washed with Zamzam water, and filled with hikmah, wisdom, and iman, faith.
Okay.
And then he's carried directly to the first heavens. There's no mention of going to Jerusalem or Baitul Maqdis first in these primary accounts. And significantly, the narration concludes with him waking up back in Masjid Haram.
So, direct ascension from Makkah, starting from sleep, ending upon waking. That does sound like a different event. But what about the controversies around some narrators, like Sharik bin Abdullah? Some critics say he mixed things up.
Ghamidi acknowledges that criticism exists. Imam Muslim and Imam Nawawi did comment on Sharik having some confusion, perhaps in sequence or details. However, Ghamidi makes a few points.
Okay.
First, the narration is included by Imam Bukhari, a giant in hadith methodology, which gives it weight. Second, Sharik isn't the only narrator. There are about 4 main chains for this incident. Third, remember riwayat bil mana, narration by meaning. Some variation is expected in hadith. And fourth, Ghamidi argues that it seems another narrator, Thabit al-Bunani, is the one who explicitly merged this ascension story with the Isra story. If you treat this ascension account as a separate ruya, as Ghamidi does, then potential timing issues, like whether it happened before prophethood or later, become less problematic. The narration itself sometimes indicates it was before the era of revelation, or on Lailatan Ukra, another night, maybe early in the mission. Its internal details, starting in Makkah, direct descent, distinguish it.
What about the specific words used, naiman, sleeping, and istaqwaza, woke up? Couldn't they be interpreted metaphorically? Some argue naiman might mean just dozing or between sleep and wakefulness, and istaqwaza could mean focusing attention, trying to support a physical journey.
Ghamidi counters this similarly to the ruya argument. The narration clearly states he was asleep and then he woke up in the haram. These are the standard words used in Arabic and indeed in English to describe going to sleep and waking up from a dream.
So the straightforward meaning.
Yes. He argues that figurative uses like saying the nation is asleep or awaken from your slumber always have strong contextual clues. Those clues are absent here. The simplest, most direct reading is sleep and waking. Moreover, he stresses that the content of this particular vision strongly suggests allegory.
How so?
Think about it. The opening of the physical chest, washing the heart, filling it with faith and wisdom. Then the negotiation over prayers, reducing them from 50 down to 5 after discussions with Prophet Musa. Hearing the footsteps of Bilal in paradise already, seeing detailed depictions of paradise and hell, Ghamidi argues these elements make far more sense as powerful, symbolic allegories within a profound ruya, rather than literal physical events.
So the content itself points towards a visionary or dreamlike state. What was the purpose, the objective of this fourth incident, this ascension ruya?
It seems to have served several key purposes. First, it powerfully conveyed the reality and importance of salah, prayer. The allegorical journey through the heavens and the negotiation highlighted prayer as Allah's fundamental right, emphasized its continuity with previous prophets like Musa, and underscored Allah's mercy in making it 5 daily prayers while granting the reward of 50.
Explaining the origin and significance of the 5 daily prayers.
Exactly. Second, the chest-opening scene serves as a potent allegory for the spiritual purification. Prophets undergo cleansing from human weaknesses, being endowed with exceptional wisdom and faith needed for their mission.
A symbolic purification.
Yes. And third, the specific visions like hearing Bilal's footsteps or seeing Jannah and Jahannam, these are part of the ruya's rich allegorical language. They offer deep spiritual truths, comfort, validation for the Prophet's teachings, like the status of Bilal, and profound affirmation for the community. These visions communicate realities that, as Ghamidi notes, often transcend the limitations of ordinary words.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back, this deep dive has really reframed the whole Isra and Meraj narrative. Instead of one physical journey, Ghamidi presents 4 distinct incidents, mostly profound ruya or visions.
That's the core of his analysis. The Isra to Jerusalem as a ruya, signifying transfer of custodianship. The 2 encounters with Jibril and Surah Najm, confirming the reality of revelation, and the ascension narrative from hadith as a separate ruya, detailing the significance of prayer and spiritual realities.
And understanding them this way, he argues, aligns better with the Quranic text itself, with linguistic principles, and makes the meaning richer.
Exactly. It doesn't diminish the miraculous nature or the spiritual grandeur at all. In fact, Ghamidi feels it enhances it. He says something like, if you see it from the point of ruya, it's a wonderful, coherent narration. If you insist on seeing it all as one physical incident, it becomes incomprehensible.
And it really underscores his methodology, that rigorous Quran-centric approach. It's not about throwing out hadith.
Not at all. It's about understanding hadith in their proper context, analyzing their language, their narrators, and always, always using the Quran as the ultimate furqan, the criterion, the final authority to resolve apparent conflicts or ambiguities.
It really highlights that idea that in seeking knowledge, the strength of the argument based on the text itself should be paramount, maybe more so than just tradition or popular opinion.
Absolutely. It's about what the words in their context truly seem to say.
Which leaves us with a fascinating thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we apply this kind of open-minded, text-focused, context-aware approach, what other narratives, maybe stories we've held dear for years, even across different traditions, what new insights might they reveal?
It's a powerful question. Perhaps re-examining familiar stories with this kind of lens, focusing on language, context, and internal coherence guided by primary sources, could lead all of us to some surprising, really enlightening aha moments.
Definitely food for thought. An invitation maybe to keep exploring and understanding these profound narratives on potentially deeper levels.